Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Great to have you here. Today I would like to talk about my healing journey in the mind, which is really profound because it's getting into my deepest roots, so to say, relationship topics and my own negative patterns I needed to see before I could change, before I could decide to change it. Because if something you have is not visible to yourself, or for me, it's not possible to decide I don't want this. And the biggest thing is what you can't see, the blind spot, the fear about something, or the thing you have which you never want to be because you wouldn't even imagine that you are this. And the more we get loose of ego topics, it means the more you can accept to have that ego, to have a certain pattern, to have a certain behavior which is negative. We are so much trained to be the best in terms of positive thinking that we are not allowing ourselves to be negative. And I'm not saying that we should become negative. I'm saying sometimes we have negativity inside and we cannot change it until we see it, that it's there. And why it's inside you and why it's outside of you and why it forms your relationships, why it forms your perspective on the world. I mean, your personal, subjective, very personal perspective on the world, And if you understand your perspective, your subconscious thoughts in a negative way, then you realize, okay, this is my creation. Because I was thinking negative about myself, about others, I'm creating this. Okay, so this is very generally spoken, but to come more to the point, myself, I had real problems in relationship building, and I've never really accepted to see this. I mean, I'm an open person. I always kind of being able to chatter with other people, to talk, to small talk, but on the one hand, I always was sad that there are no deep relationships I have, except with my partner, but not with someone else. It seems like no one really understands me. This is a really deep pattern I needed to see. And the question was, why is it like this? Because what starts in my developing process is the feeling and the wish to have relationships that are in a way emotionally transferring needs. And it is really maybe laughable about or silly, you can say. Maybe I am saying this, right? So that's the real problem, why I'm saying this. Why am I saying this? I always was thinking, okay, I don't want to tell other people about my problems. They don't want to listen to that. They have their own problems. They have enough things to cope with on their own. And why should I give even more problems of myself to someone else? So what's the need or the business to have a conversation, right? So I always learn to have conversations in a way that are really like spiritual, knowledgeable, giving some profound advice, but I've never seen that a relationship is not based on that relationships cannot be built upon that. And the lack that I was facing so much in the last days is, okay, I'm sad because there's no one really to talk about my emotions. I wasn't aware of this. And I judged my mother on this topic, that she's always talking about her emotions, the need to have others to help her with her emotions. And I couldn't see that I kind of was sitting in the same boat, having the same problem, and didn't want to see it, because I was saying, you don't need kind of emotional conversations. They're not helping, and that's the problem. Actually, we need it. And if it's not communicating in a way, if we're not able to communicate emotions and how we feel, it's kind of the need of the inner child, so to say, you can say. But if we're not communicating about it, then there is a loss of deeper communication, yeah. And I wasn't aware what deep conversations are really about. I was always judging on others that they are not talking about the topics I'm interested in. So there is a different level of what deep conversation means, yeah. It's not about deep knowledge, it's about deep feeling. And somehow you can say it's both, because we have the need for feeling and we have the need for intellectual property, so to say, to exchange. But the need for emotional topics to exchange was kind of a lack inside myself. And this was one part, and now everyone has its own processes that are coming to the surface to look at, to let go of, and to see what's no longer serving ourselves especially. And the other topic which was combined with this was a judgment upon not only talking about feelings, maybe it's not interesting or what kind of sense has it. It is always judging about everything, judging about other people, judging about myself. And there I needed to see I have negative thoughts. I wasn't aware of this. Because from an intellectual point of view, I know that this is not helping, this is not creating, and this is not what I'm talking about in my videos so far. So you now kind of get a new perspective on my person when you're listening to this. Because I needed to really see and accept that I'm thinking negatively. I wasn't aware of this. And there comes another point with that. Maybe it's the third thing here which I needed to see, is however someone else is thinking negative about me was influencing me unconsciously in a way that I didn't feel accepted. I judged myself or the other person for being negative. And I couldn't accept the other person to be negative, because this is not a way how friendship can evolve, how relationships can evolve. And first I needed to see that I'm doing this on myself. This is the first big step. Without it, there couldn't be the second. I'm talking now. And it's that we really need to accept that this is human. And this is that no one who thinks negative really wants to hurt someone. And I also didn't want to hurt someone with negative thoughts. Although they are there, they have been there. My attention now for this is even bigger now, and I'm more aware of what thoughts and words, of course, can cause. And not being so hard in life, how we are trained, how to receive certain comments, how to give certain comments in writing, in speaking. We are emotional beings, and this is one of the biggest topics that I know, but I didn't see, I didn't live. I was not practicing. I was not practicing as deep as I now see. Maybe there's a deeper level to this as well. We only can see so far as we see, right? So there's this third aspect of negative thinking, not to judge and not to feel judged if you see or hear telepathically that someone else is thinking negatively, or feel in an emotional way if someone else is thinking and feeling negatively about yourself. Because this was one big aspect, to judge others as well. Again, to say, okay, this person is not thinking good about me, so I can not like him or her. And this was a next kind of struggle to understand how this all is referring to and where it results in. So it results in having no relationship. This is really going deeper. For that I can be open, or someone else can be open, right? There is a new component to understand what communication really is. And we are all getting more sensitive, we are getting more telepathic, we are receiving more and more energies of the others, their emotions, their thoughts, and not only their words. This was always with me, but now I understand a deeper level of this way of communication, because it blocked me to not see what negative thoughts from myself and others are doing in my way of communication. It breaks down. I kind of was not able to communicate freely, whether seeing my own negative emotions and thoughts, and also not wanting to see and feel the emotions of others, or kind of get into a distant position to that and say, no, I don't want this, I don't like them. And there comes this new field and thought perspective that says we are all on the way because I've done it wrong. I'm also this person who's thinking negative. Sometimes more, sometimes less, and it's okay. We are only can judge ourselves for this. We only can change ourselves for this. And when I understood this, it somehow broke me free of what others are thinking. It's fine. They can be negative if they want. They can also be negative to me. It's fine. They have their own topics. They can still work on this. Fine. And it's so amazing for me to understand that there is a bigger viewpoint into what communication means and what it really needs to solve and what it needs to overstep. To be in good relationship means always to wish the best for someone else and to anticipate that someone else also wants the best, even though they are maybe thinking negative, even though they are maybe feeling negative, even though they are maybe using negative words or sentences or are criticizing. I did criticizing without knowing that I can hurt someone really by only having some good intentions for criticism, to optimize something in the system, in the way of communication itself. That's the funny thing. And I couldn't see how much optimizing how much optimization is needed for me in my way of communicating. And to break free of these fear-based patterns, what communication needs to be, cannot be, or should be. To be free of whatever someone is thinking and feeling. And not to judge also myself if I'm on a negative thought. I have the choice to say, okay, this is not fair if I think this, and I don't want to think it because I know what it makes if someone else is thinking about me. It sends this negative energy telepathically. I don't want this any longer to send, that someone else needs to receive it, that someone else needs to kind of cope with it, how I needed to cope with that, because it blocked me. And now I understand even more how it blocks others. And this is how communication really is functioning on a way that is bringing something positive, is by eliminating these negative fear patterns that are anticipating in fear that something can be wrong, or someone thinks wrong, or doesn't want me, or is neglecting something, is pushing something away. And to accept also this, that someone doesn't like something. But I was always confronted with these behaviors, thoughts and emotions that I feel that are coming to me in a way of they don't like me. And this made me sad. I feel kind of neglected. And it was my own perspective on this that shut me down. I myself shut myself down to think they don't like me, they don't want me, instead of thinking they are on their own topics to solve with thoughts and emotions and words and how to communicate. And that this is a great big field to understand how it can really get in a positive, optimized way out in the world with others. And my inner child was so much influenced by negative thinking and feeling because it always wanted to be loved. Maybe this is a fourth pillar here to talk about in deep reflections and transformation processes for me. The wish and the need to be loved, and combined with the need to have relationships, to be in interaction, in communication. And if someone is neglecting me, then I was thinking they don't like me, they don't love me. And to make kind of a separation in these topics. There is like and there is love for each other, even though we have our negative thoughts and emotions. And sometimes they are even not directed at us, and still they are there for a certain topic of the person itself that cannot solve it at the moment, and it's not even meant for us personally. This is another aspect that I needed to learn, especially in my family with my partner, that every emotion which is expressed is not for me, it's not meant to be for me, and it still is there and is allowed to be there, need to be there to express ourselves, to become aware of ourselves in the first place, because if we're not expressing anything, then we are mostly unaware of what we are feeling. So there's an urgent need to express whatever we feel. And with feelings, there come negative thoughts and feelings and words. And it's so much also about projections, If we are not aware of the topic we are frustrated about, or we don't feel good about, then we are projecting. Means we're insulting others in certain topics. We give criticism to whatever topics or persons. And in originally, or going to the root case of this, we can find out that it's not meant to be put onto that outside, on the system, on the person. It was rather a channel for us to bring this out, but we couldn't do it otherwise. We couldn't do it in a way that is in peace and not harming. And this is also a thing to understand in communication, that sometimes we get criticized because someone else cannot find a way or a channel for his own subconscious frustration, his own or her own topics. But if energies in the outside world and inside are now triggering the unconscious world to come up, there are even more communicating problems with each other if we are not being sensitive about the personal point of view that can be so difficult to understand for oneself and to express for oneself. And then to get it right on the other side also. So difficult to get to the root case from a critic, from a statement that is harming, that hurts, and to understand why the other person is hurt or harmed by that. Because if the other person would not take it personally, then there wouldn't be a problem for the other person. But most of the time this is not the case. We have our wounds and we are in synchronicities, we are in resonance with each other. My wound is triggering your wound, and it's also the other way around. And we don't know what kind of wound the other person has. But sometimes it comes like a key to the whole. This is fitting into that. And it's so wonderful to always take back and see what is really hurting me. But also to see what have I done that hurts someone else that I didn't know. To have a reflection on if our criticism is how it's communicated, if it's something for a greater good, or if it's just our own frustration. Yeah, I mean, there's a differentiation we need to analyze for ourselves when we have the fear of being hurt from someone else, or to be afraid to be criticized. Then we need to understand if we were allowed to criticize or if we weren't. If there was an aspect which was right in this kind of criticism, or if the criticism in total was not correct, or if it was just the way how we communicate the criticism aspect. And it's so in all of this discussion, it's not only black and white, it's sometimes in between, and we need to reflect on this. So maybe this video helps you to understand communication in a new way, that thoughts, emotions, and words are in negative and positive ways, and we are always loved. And the most important aspect is to understand that we are never, ever not loved because of communication is wrong, or is not happening, or is not possible, or no one is communicating with me, or I am not communicating to someone. We, in most cases, are still loved, and we don't know, because we are in our own thought and emotional patterns, kind of caught up, caged inside a cave, that we need to allow ourselves to go out and say, okay, I will do the first step to come out of my own cage, open the door, and I go to another person and I communicate. I open the door to say hi, to say how are you, to find any topic, whatever is there, without having any intention or expectation how this discussion or communication can go on. We are social beings. We have the need to communicate, and I think this is the most and biggest important factor to understand in emotional needs in our private life, but also in the professional life, that there's always a need for communication, for relationship. And because communication and relationship is so close to each other, it has some big influences to build new and wonderful relationships if you solve the communication problems. Especially when you know in your family, your parents, how you grow up, there had been communication problems between your parents, between whoever. Because as a child we learned from that. That's how we create our own patterns, how to see the world, how to be afraid of the world, or how to be open to the world. And if there's kind of a negative pattern, in a way this is not creating freedom and peace and harmony and joy, then we need to look closer. Because we need relationships, but the basis for relationship is communication. And if we have really a problem in communication, then we cannot build relationships in a way that is needed to stay together, to not say I go somewhere else. Maybe somewhere else someone is more friendly to me, is more acceptive or more respectful or whatever. We never should run away of the topics that we need to solve in ourselves. And the problem is to see it, that we have a problem with this. And this was the biggest problem for me, because I normally are able to communicate very openly, friendly, and it's really coming naturally, easily, and harmonic if I'm in communication with someone who is really open, who is really friendly, where I have the feeling that this person really likes me. But it comes unnaturally for me, and this was the biggest point I needed to solve, if someone has some negative, destructive thoughts or negative feelings of jealousy, of not feeling proud of himself, or not, I mean, there can come so much negative energy to you or in your field if someone is not content, not really in peace with yourself, with himself, with herself. And if this is the case, then it's more difficult to communicate. It's more, you need to step over something to communicate still freely. If you are distracted and neglected by that because you're doing this in your own patterns, then you're not able to communicate freely. Then you are kind of break yourself down, close up, and you don't communicate. Yeah? And in a way you are communicative in this part, and in another way you're not communicating. You're closing yourself. You're turning yourself towards somewhere else. And this is a schizophrenic aspect, although I'm not meaning schizophrenia here. I'm talking about things which look opposite and you don't know why. Yeah, there are deeper stuff to look at when it's about communicating. And one of the aspects is really to accept negative thoughts, to accept someone else is not in peace for himself or projecting on you. It's fine, it's allowed, We're all on the way to develop. We are not perfect in our thoughts. Also, I'm not. We're not perfect in our emotions, being balanced, even though, and especially in these times where everything is coming up really fast and we need to integrate and to understand and to reflect what's going on with myself. I don't know what's happening now again, and sometimes I'm eating chocolate and chocolate and chocolate, and I know there's something that needs to be seen, to be looked at, and still it's not there yet, but the process takes some time, and this is the same for others. So we are kind of in an or disbalanced state at work, in the family, and also therefore in the way of communicating, and finally resulting in the way of relationship building. And there are so many topics that actually rise from the thought and the emotion pattern that needed to be solved by everyone by itself, by him or herself. We cannot solve it for someone else. So we need to accept a lot of things. To accept this, or they have problems at the moment. It's fine, it's okay. We still can do our work. And we don't need to solve it for someone else, right? This is another aspect, because we cannot solve it for someone else. Even if we are really open and helpful in communication, even if we are supporting the other person needs to sort it out for him or herself. And it's really deep transformational processes. It's really going to the roots of our learned patterns in the childhood already, and where we are putting ourselves in the cage, in which kind of topics, and to become free of this, because we are free. No one else outside is putting us into this cage that we are kind of feel trapped into. So we need to see why we have closed the door, why we're in this cage, why we have said we need to protect us. What's the reason? What's the fear behind it? What kind of fear do we have? And is this really true? What happens if I lose my workplace? What happens if my neighbor doesn't like me? What happens if my child is against me? Whatever, all these topics. If you think or spin the worst case, what's the cause? Is it really so bad? Is there no alternative? You all need to die one day. But if it's not fear of death, then maybe it's more easier to solve. Okay. I hope this was helpful for you. For me it was. These things to see, to accept, to be human, to see my own cage, and now be free to let go of this, and what can be my steps to get out. And there's so much potential if you solve your own communication problems. I see things that are now evolving even more, that I'm free to have another opinion, but also to see how I need to communicate other opinions, not to harm others in an unconscious way. So there's a lot of potential that's going on with communication, to be even more of yourself, to express more of your soul ways of seeing things, to go for things that have worth, and this what is not ego-based, but it's like you say, this is right because, and this is not because I want to be loved or I'm afraid not to be loved. There's so much new ways in which direction communication is unfolding if we see what the reason really is, why we communicate, how we communicate, and what we are communicate for. Okay, guys, loved ones, dear ones, I wish you all the best. Maybe see you next time. Bye.